Hello, this is a natal reading. I have your name down as sister because I actually didn't get a name for you, but happy birthday. I'm excited to go over your birth chart with you. This is going to be briefly about the big three, then the little three, and any aspects that jump out. We'll touch on the nodes as well. So let's get started. Your big three, that is the most accessible consciousness of personality that we have and that others usually perceive for us. So that's why I like to start there. So you are a Pisces rising, a Scorpio sun, and a Virgo moon. So the Pisces rising is a really nice ascendant to have because it gives you this almost sixth sense about you when you are dawning on new people or experiences are dawning on you, right? It's the rising sign. It's the first impression of how we portray ourselves and how others receive us. And the sixth sense about you is that you really get a good initial feeling about people and experiences. You have this really strong gut intuition that lets you feel a situation out if it's a place that you need to be in or if it's not the right place for you to be in. If the person that you're meeting is someone that you want to exchange energy with, or if it's not the right connection, you feel that before you actually know it. So it's a position that you should always regard as a gift and lean into and trust. Sometimes you can feel that something is going to come from this new situation, and it does. So you kind of get reinforced to trust yourself because even if you don't know while you're in a new place, you might feel like you need to be. And that's the trusting that comes with this rising sign that other people notice about you too. People might see you as somebody who just gets them, and maybe you haven't even said much, but they just feel like they can be open around you, that you have this ability to emotionally connect with people just by your energy. The vibration that you carry yourself at is one of reaching out to others and letting them feel your your spiritual ease. You put people in a place to feel comfortable and that they can really express who they are. Another thing about the Pisces rising is that there's really no boundaries here, right? If you think about the fish that represent this sign, the swimming of the different ways, they're really going in both directions because they want to flow one with the consciousness of humanity, but then also they want to flow with the universal spirit. So they can really go in both directions and they have this ability to reach so many people that way. And they're able to do a lot of healing in that process too. So when you meet people and they tell you things and then they feel better after talking to you, a lot of times it's because you have this ability to help spiritually heal people from being around contact with you. Sometimes the Pisces rising person needs to be careful of this because they wind up being needed a lot by people and they become depleted. This can almost be like a martyr position of somebody who is constantly helping other people feel better spiritually or energetically. And then they themselves feel very like overstimulated or like they're losing a bit of themselves, and sometimes they can wind up being misunderstood in situations or confused or really torn all over the place because you're just picking up other people's energy all the time, and it's like your antenna just can't turn off. So you got to make sure that you protect this side of you too, that if you're not always around people that are on lower vibrations or people that always have a sob story or people that always need your calming or supportive energy. You have to protect that on some levels. So another strength of having a Pisces rising, in my opinion, is that it helps set up your house system so that it's in a position to really connect to what the house represents. So, for instance, your first house has the sign of Aries, in it. So it actually starts with Pisces rising because that is in Placidus, the first house. But look, if you look, your Saturn falls in Aries in the first house. That's a nice place because all the signs in the house are going to be speaking the language that is comfortable. They're already going to be able to express themselves in a more concise way. They're not fighting through a different setting. They're comfortable there already. So it's a nice way, and it helps you just flow your energy into new places easier than some other people who there's this disconnect. So I always like to bring that up because it's a little bit like you're kind of one step ahead of other people, and it really gives you access to expressing yourself more freely than some other rising signs. So moving on to your Scorpio sun, we are in Scorpio season, so a lot of us are feeling some of these tendencies too, but this is where you live. So you're always going to be following the path of the sun to really feel aligned with who you are. So when you're doing that with a Scorpio sun, your conscious self, the people that would describe you, that know you the best, would probably say that you're somebody who is very interested in getting to know someone fully, who can be really intense about a lot of situations in life. But when you finally get to what you really want, you can really go at it with tunnel vision. You can be so thorough that you can't even see outside of whatever it is that you're focusing on. You're somebody who really values depth in people and conversation, and you might be less likely to want to just mingle with people and a lot more likely to want to really get to know a few people really well than to just have a lot of people that are just acquaintances. You take partnerships very seriously because your sun is in the seventh house. So as you grow in your own identity, you really see who you really are when you're in a partnership with someone else. That's the time that you feel most like yourself. So when anybody has a sun in the seventh house, sometimes they identify with signs in other places because we're not always in partnerships. So our actual relationship with ourself can be seen more heavily than in our rising sign or our moon sign. And for you, it's nice because your moon sign in Virgo is in what we call a sextile to the sun. So it already communicates really well together. See this blue line here? That's a ease, that's comfort, that's a strength for you. It gives opportunity to consciously think something, emotionally feel in agreement with that. So there's no internal struggle there. So you might feel like that Scorpio sun really comes out when you're with somebody, that you really are surprised at how deeply you can connect with someone and how it makes you really feel fulfilled in who you are. And then when you're not in partnerships, you might feel this Virgo moon a lot. And your Virgo moon is in the sixth house, which is also a Virgo house. So I could see you really having a lot of more accessible Virgo traits than other Virgo moons. So, where your rising sign and your sun sign are water signs, they're deeply emotional, they're compassionate, they're feeling, maybe even psychic tendencies, like I was saying, with that sixth sense of just picking up on your intuition a little bit more than most people. But now with this Virgo moon, which is opposite of the Pisces rising, I see you having a lot of mental energy too, a real active mind. And that makes you feel emotionally secure in who you are, your intellectual ability. You trust your ability to reason through things, be very observant of what's going on in your life, and trust on your ability to just follow through and get jobs done in your own life that make you feel more stable. It's an earth sign, so this part of you really grounds you into reality, where I could see that you have a lot of imagination potential, creative ability, maybe even a tendency to be like a daydreamer or real idealistic even. But this Virgo moon is really helping you ground and stay in reality, and really want you to focus on bringing things into life that really is useful and purposeful to yourself. to help you every day feel like you're on the right track and that you're not just kind of getting carried away in ideals and fantasies and hopefulness. You have this ability to work to see goals come through and actually obtain what it is that you dream about in life. So I really like this position here because although your ideals are really high and you might have high hopes and potentially suffer from being disappointed in life because things don't work out the way that you could see it being, you have this groundedness about you that knows that you're still going to make things happen for yourself. You've thought it through, you see the steps that it takes to get things accomplished, and you're willing to do the work there. And for it being an emotional placement, being grounded like that, it really gives you an ability to keep your mood a little bit more steady than a lot of double water signs. So you might find that yeah, you really do feel a lot for other people, but deep down, you know that you're solid in who you are, and you're not going to let that totally destroy you or make you not be able to do the next right thing that you need to do in your life. And in turn, it makes you a lot more useful to people because now you feel greatly for them and you actually aren't getting lost in it. You can really ground yourself and help them. So this big three all together, the Pisces rising, the Scorpio sun in the seventh house, and the Virgo moon in the sixth house just really gives you this DNA, so to speak, of being someone that can really be effectively connecting with somebody in a way that is healing and helping somebody. And that's what makes you feel really alive in yourself. And it can be for yourself too. So I think that you're really motivated by your ability to do something for somebody and be really connected to another person. So this is the big three of someone I see who is drawn to partnerships and other people and community in this life. This is not a chart for somebody who is really um, isolated or working on just figuring themselves out. This whole chart is so full on the top. This is a public life. This is somebody who is highly sensitive, but really connected to other people and wants to be out there and learn more about themselves through other people and experiences away from the home and private life. So I could see you being really involved in your community and other people and partnerships throughout your whole life and only growing because of that. So let's go talk about your little three then. So your Mercury is in the same sign as your sun, which a lot of people is. Mercury always travels close to the sun, just in astronomy, that's how the cycles work. Some people, it's in a different house like yours. Some people, it's in one sign before or after the sun. But for you, it's in the same sign. So that's a strength for you because what you're thinking about, what you're consciously aware of, and how you speak that to other people are in agreement. They do it the same way. So you're the type of person that people really feel this. You talk the talk and walk the walk. What you say is what you mean. You're not just speaking on anything, you're speaking purposefully. And it is something that is true to who you actually identify as. Especially in the sign of Scorpio, this is somebody who is maybe a little bit of a pause to really find what they really mean. You're less likely to just go on and on about a random topic. If you're speaking on it, it's because you really know it. It's in the eighth house of thoroughness, depth, investigation, and of topics in general that are of like the life cycles or spiritual meanings, metaphysical, or deeply connected to human motivations. So if you're at a party, I can see you being someone who, with your Pisces rising, walks in and everybody wants to be around you because you just make them feel good. But then when who you decide to really talk to, it's going to be the person that you felt drawn to that actually is maybe really interested in a topic that they weren't planning on even talking about, but somehow you got them talking about these really deep issues in life. Everyone else is talking about the weather and celebrities and gossip, and you and one person are in the corner somewhere discussing like the meaning of life and paranormal activity. Like, this is the kind of things you think about, talk about, and meet people on and bring out in them. And it's interesting because with the sun in the seventh house, it's like a one on one way to do this. And you really bond with people over things that maybe other people don't talk about or think about, but you do. And that's, you want that equally deep connection in return from other people. Otherwise, you just might leave the party because no one's talking about anything that you actually want to spend your time entertaining. So the next level of connection then after Mercury would be like our love connection. So we go to Venus for that and Mars. And in your case, you have a perfect conjunction between Venus and Mars. So 0 degrees is where two planets come together and they become a super planet. It's not just Venus anymore. It's not just Mars. You have this Venus Mars planet in your chart that is at the very top of your chart. This is right um, our highest aspirations. This is our MC. This is when everything goes right and we've done everything to our best, highest quality. This is what we get. And for you, it's the super planet of Mars and Venus in Sagittarius. So it's really hard to talk about one without talking about the other when they are so on top of each other and making this connection. So for a person to have the Sagittarius super planet going on here is somebody who is always thinking about the big picture in life. What are we all doing here? What are people doing on the other side of the world? Why am I not over there with them? I don't want to be down here where we're all just doing the everyday stuff. I really want to blow my mind and expand my world every chance I can get. Sagittarius in Mars and Venus does this in a way that is very passionate and adventurous. So it's just somebody who loves taking life as this big adventure and higher learning, never being put in the box, never accepting that this is just the way it is because that's the way it's always been. Always thinking, well, what if or why? And what else has been done? And I want to do that too. So Mars is the gas here. It's wanting to go and do that and get these adventures. And Venus is the connections that you make by doing this and feeling this way. It's bonding with people and places and ideals or religions or dogmas or cultures who also feel this way. So you're really likely to fall in love or get this feeling of deep harmony and beauty of the world when you're in a new place that a whole new culture or a whole new philosophy that you've never experienced before. And it's really expanding your belief system. So if you've traveled abroad for school, that would be something that this super conjunction would love. You would be celebrating your Mars by actually going to a new place and trying something new. And you would be celebrating your Venus by interacting with people who have nothing to do with you, that totally make you think a whole new way and do things completely different. This is the kind of stuff that gets you really excited and shows this really beautiful side of you that is really attractive to other people who don't know anything about you. It really expands their mind too. And together you form this beautiful relationship of, wow, like everything is so much bigger than us. If you're getting that, then that's how you're doing this right. If you feel that way, like, wow, this just blew my mind, then that's that energy. And that's where you really feel like your highest self. So nothing is ever just the same dull, boring existence. It's like, I want to learn more. I want to see more. I want to meet more. And I want to experience and celebrate all of what the world has to offer. So it's like a supercharged energy and it's a fire. So that's the first fire we've come to in your chart. So far, it had been one of the water, the emotional, the feeling, the compassionate, and the earth of being grounded and making things happen. But now we come into this fire in you, this really inspiring and passionate, and this energy of actually moving forward. It's a different energy of earth of getting things done. It's blowing it up of an inferno of there's no plan and skill and practice. It's a passion in me that is sometimes very spontaneous and just takes off. And I have to chase it because it just makes me feel alive. So that's the energy we're talking about here. And at the top of your chart, it's very important because that is something that inside you're always going to be aspiring to. So when you know what it is, you can kind of follow the breadcrumb here of what makes you feel that way to reach this highest potential. And in love, you want people who are thinking that way too. Like sky's the limit. No one could ever, you could never hear someone say something that you're like, oh my gosh, like that is ridiculous. Like, come back to reality. You're like, oh wow, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I want to try that too. you know, I love how big you're thinking. So that's the type of person that you're attracted to. Mars in a female chart or female energy is what we're really attracted to, what turns us on, what's get us excited. Well, when people are really passionate and ambitious and actively pursuing their dreams, that gets you excited. And then in Venus in Sagittarius, you're you're attracted and it's the real deal. Like you might be somebody who falls in love at first sight because your Mars and your Venus are the same. You don't fall for somebody and then 5 minutes later it's like, oh no, like that's actually not my type at all. Like, no, that is your type. Are they really you know, jovial? Do they excite you with their stories of chaos and adventures? And maybe they're not always the most like grounded person and really like steady at the job, but they have really big dreams and they're excited about life and that excites you too. And you want to go on an adventure with them. That catches your attention. And then your Venus sign being in Sagittarius also is like, yeah, like this could work for me. I like this person's ability to just at the drop of a dime want to go on a random road trip. I'm all about that. Yeah, let's go. That concert went on tour. Like, let's go. Who cares what we had planned? I want to do something new and that sounds fun. And you want to go with me, then great. And then they give you the freedom to also explore what you want to do and not be stuck to these commitments of owing each other or, being stuck to where you can't pursue your own interests in life. But Venus Sagittarius really needs their freedom too. You don't know really maybe what you want to do in the next 5 years, but you know that today you like this person and you really want to see where this is going to take you. And you need somebody who's okay with that they're not trying to tie you down and have you make all these promises about forever because to you it's about the journey, not the destination, and you really appreciate when somebody else has that same philosophy. So we're going to move on now to the outer planets. That was the big three and the little three, but the outer planets help guide us towards accomplishing these personality planets. The outer planets aren't so much about our inner personality as it is about opportunities and lessons that they're trying to help us grow in this life. Okay. So if you have a outer planet, then in a certain sign, a lot of people that were born around your time do it too. It's not so exact to your exact personality, but very important still. So I like to talk about Jupiter because you have a lot of Sagittarius energy and Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So it's important to talk about. Plus, Jupiter is where we receive great benefits in our life. It is the place we can take chances and things go well. It's where we're just naturally gifted and we receive a lot of blessings in this area. So for you, it's in the sign of Aquarius in your 12th house. And when I saw this at first, I thought, oh, okay, I was surprised to see that because a lot of that active Sagittarius energy, I was expecting Jupiter to be in a different house. But really, Jupiter is the co ruler of Pisces too. So then it makes sense a little bit more because the house of Pisces is the 12th house. So you have Jupiter in the house that it co rules. So this takes Jupiter, and instead of in your face energy of what it can be in other houses, it puts it in this more behind the scenes energy. So it's really actually very beneficial for you as a Pisces rising, someone who can give themselves away a lot in the sake of being helpful or even just like spiritually bringing someone up a level and not even realizing it. Having Jupiter in the 12th house is a gift for you because it's going to expand that house. It's going to give you more of a spiritual reserve. So when you're being drained by people constantly, you have this like backup battery that helps keep you charged up. So you have a little bit more juice and you can be around people a little bit longer before you really start to feel depleted, which is very useful since you have such a public chart. You're going to spend a lot of time around people. So having Jupiter in the 12th house for you is really helpful. Is going to give you a little bit more spiritual energy to help not feel really like burnt out. So, with the 12th house Jupiter, you really want to have a solid spiritual practice, though, because Jupiter expands and this area of your life is going to want attention. So, if you're not already interested in like spiritual ideas, philosophies that kind of aren't set in stone, they're expanding, ever changing. You just kind of fall into different spiritual practices because you were kind of just nudged towards it for some reason. These are all Jupiter's way of telling you, like, hey, look here, try this, take time, make space for this type of spiritual practice. You need spirituality like the rest of us need a healthy diet. You have to have some type of spiritual practice in your life because wherever Jupiter is, it makes your house so much bigger. So a lot of your time goes into your spiritual side, whether or not you're practicing or not. If you're not practicing, then you might just feel this spiritual hole. And you don't want that. You want a spiritual gift. You want to be spiritually charged and happy there and full, and then generous in your ability to share that with other people. If your Jupiter in the 12th house is feeling fulfilled, then now you're able to help share that gift with other people. Oh, they see that you have this really great spiritual connection, and now you're able to help inspire them to have one too. But if it's not there, then your spiritual lacking affects other people too. So you have the ability to either share with what you have, this great spiritual wealth, or the lack of it, then this great spiritual lacking presence. So see how Jupiter would really want to be fulfilled in this situation. So spend time spent on your spiritual growth and practice is not time wasted. You actually really need that in your life. And you will feel the most optimistic, happy, jubilant self when you're actually taking care of that area. So when we talk about Jupiter, the other side of the coin is Saturn. Where are we restricted? Where do we feel like things take time? Where are we asking to put the work in and be disciplined before we get these great gifts? So for you, you have Saturn in the first house in Aries. This is important for you because you actually have an intercepted Aries. So an An intercepted sign means that your house starts somewhere. So your first house is Pisces, but um, your Aries never really has a cusp of the house. So the planet in that house sometimes doesn't get expressed as easily. So when that's Saturn, I personally don't really think that's the worst thing ever because Saturn gets covered up. But what can happen, Saturn is one of those things that you feel restricted in, but you still need it. So when it's in the first house and it's intercepted, it makes me think that you haven't really had to um, feel its presence as much. And you might feel more comfortable with your relationship with yourself, and that is a blessing, but Saturn wants you to be working on that too. So if you can't hear that, it's important that you are conscious of it. You have this trine, this blue line here that goes to your Venus to Saturn, which is a really positive aspect here. It's saying, the more that you work on yourself, your relationship with yourself, before you jump into relationships with other people, the more you're going to feel secure in who you are, and you're going to be feeling like very capable of being independent, especially with Aries. So it's saying take time for yourself, really put the work in on yourself. Don't maybe, the Sagittarius Venus will just run away with somebody, but Saturn's asking you in a nice way because it's a trine. It's just saying, hey, before you do that, just make sure that you are comfortable being alone and that independently you already feel really good about yourself because it's only going to help your relationships, especially with a seventh house sun, where you're naturally drawn to other people, and a Pisces rising, where sometimes your boundaries are not always super in place. We really need to let Saturn talk to us and say, okay, like I will slow down, I will pause a moment, I will make sure that I am comfortable in who I am, that I'm not jumping into relationships to fill something else. I'm going to make sure that just me being me is fine. And if I choose to be with somebody else, it's because they're only making it better for me. I'm not running away from myself. And when we listen to that, you're really going to make the Saturn energy happy. And it's only going to bring people into your life who make you feel secure in yourself and make things even better. So the intercepted sign here, it's going to be something that you have to really tune into to work on, because it's not just jumping off at you. Like sometimes Saturn will, but this one is not. So it's up to you to really want that type of self-discipline and that pause and that growth and that maturity. You got to dig a little deeper for that sometimes. So let's see, we're going to move on now. The other outer planets are in the this aspect I want to talk about. So let's jump into that. So I'm so glad that we talked about Saturn, because now that it makes so much more sense when we're talking about this next part, and you'll see why. Because you have what's called a multi-planet square. So we have all these planets over here that are our outer planets talking to all these planets over here that are our inner planets. So it's basically like the universal guide is giving you opportunities for growth through some kind of tension in your life that really helps your personality develop and blossom over time. So the time that you're willing to spend working on these things, the more you're going to benefit from opportunities of growth and success, which is really wonderful because not a lot of people have these opportunities. Your chart is, I believe, something that you decide that you want before you come back. You don't have to believe that for this to work, but it just sometimes it makes sense when you see what has happened in your life. And This is like another chance with Saturn being intercepted down here. It's kind of like another chance to really work on maturity and self-discipline. So when you have the the squares here between the Sun and Chiron and Mercury and Uranus and Neptune and Jupiter, you get this opportunity to have these outside forces, like let's say for Uranus, have things completely changed in your life to really reassess, like, am I spending time where I really want to be? Am I in the right partnerships, right? So if Uranus is squaring your seventh house of your sun, are you taking the initiative here when Uranus suddenly brings people into your life to really shine in these partnerships and growth? So you might find with this one part of this square that maybe people just randomly come into your life, or you feel like all of a sudden things get turned upside down in your life out of nowhere that you really have no control over. And a Scorpio stellium here really doesn't appreciate that a lot. So you don't want your whole identity to be challenged randomly and out of your control. You probably like to feel secure and being able to predict what's going to happen to you and feel like you have some control over your relationships. But when you have this square here, Uranus is saying, well, I'm going to just randomly take people out of your life and I'm going to randomly add people in because what we're working on is not so much the person, but it's your response to them and your ability to relate to them in these really deep, meaningful ways, having that Scorpio energy. And a Scorpio stellium is always going to talk about transformation. So it's kind of like the Achilles heel of Scorpio stelliums because they want so much control, but the sign itself represents total transformation. So you kind of have to lose it all to get something better. You know, that phoenix imagery here of the phoenix turning to ashes before the phoenix rise into this beautiful bird. So this journey that you chose to take to really have this emotional depth and growth and transformation into these deep, meaningful relationships and really getting to like the depths and the edge of human motivations and potential intimacy. To do that, you're needing help by things getting that maybe were too fixed and stale, kind of getting thrown into a new light. So the Aquarius in Uranus is what we call your soul dispositor here. It's the only sign and planet in its natural rulership. So that's important because that means Uranus, although it's not your chart ruler, it's a very powerful presence in your chart. It is guiding the ship, sort of. And that's not really comfortable for a Scorpio person who doesn't always want things shook up and the power being taken away, or when they think they get to know somebody here, they're gone. Like that's not comfortable. But that's what is happening to you sometimes because that is what's going to lead to your ultimate growth and your transformation of your full identity. So the sun being involved in this is about turning into somebody who maybe you never even thought you could be. So you need help doing that. Then also Neptune is squaring here too. And you know, when Neptune's involved with Mercury and the sun and Chiron, sometimes it speaks about these high ideals that a person has and their ability to be so compassionate and loving and really getting some type of disappointments because other people don't really live up to those expectations a lot. And sometimes in Capricorn, it can be our parents or our authority, or maybe even the system at large. You know, that's just, it doesn't sit right with you because you feel like it's morally not fair, or you're just a very sensitive person and you don't want to see other people get hurt. But sometimes that happens a lot, and you're trying to make sense of that. So the square here is sometimes painful because you have a very sensitive personality and you have a soft spot for humanity and you don't want to see people suffering and you don't want to see yourself suffer. But sometimes that happens here because then it pulls you towards those causes and brings your voice into that light. So people with these displacement sometimes feel drawn to like a spiritual path or like some type of like trauma healing themselves, that you've been so sensitive to the suffering of the world that you do want to talk about it and you do want to help other people get through that too. So in the eighth house, sometimes that is like a one-on-one way of helping people through trauma, or it's some type of counseling, or it could be like getting really into like occult ideas or metaphysical beliefs that help make sense and find peace of some of the injustices in the world. So you might be feeling like all those experiences of sudden chaos or feeling really disenchanted with the world really pushes you in life towards like this really purposeful calling of answering that and exploring the whys and how can I help someone get through that too, because they're not alone in feeling this way and you're not either. So it could also be like a very artistic outlet here, like uh, through your words. So with Mercury involved in Chiron, there is pain there, and you identify with that pain and you're able to speak on it or write on it, some type of like poetry or written creativity through it being a water in a water house. But feeling, it's all about feeling the pain and speaking on that in some way that connects to someone else who also feels that way. And then they don't feel so alone in it, that you're merging in this experience. And then you're providing healing that you were able to use to heal for yourself. That's what Scorpio wants. It wants to emotionally connect and it wants to really help someone else not feel so isolated and alone in their own feelings. That's the highest expression of Scorpio. It then can transform themselves and someone else. So we're not just holding it in, we're becoming emotionally vulnerable with someone else too. So there's a real beauty in that. And it also, with your fire that you have with the last outer planet, with Pluto, naturally the ruler of Scorpio, we see in the ninth house in Sagittarius, it's expanding this higher learning. So I wouldn't be surprised if you are somebody who went back to school or took some type of like apprenticeship to where you were really learning on the highest level of whatever you feel like you're called to do. With Scorpio stellium, you're going to feel like this deep purpose in life to do something. And then with a Sagittarius stellium, you're going to be really fired up to learn the most about it, to really be someone who's considered wise in that department. And it has to be something that is emotionally and philosophically or spiritually on some level driven. These are all about the things that we can't see. It's not really about the everyday. It's not about academics just for the sake of awareness. It's like spiritual purposes, higher philosophies, exploring things that nobody wants to talk about or think about. It's really taking on things that we can't see, but we all experience at some level and being the wise one of it, making it make sense for everybody else because we all feel this, but you have the energy to learn about it and then help us get through it too. And it all comes here from these outer planets that are helping you feel that tension to really get the motivation to pursue these higher callings in life. So with that being one theme, it kind of talks too about this other aspect that you have. So that was the main one to me, those two multi-planet squares. But you have this something called this T square. So a T square is where you have an opposing energy, and then you have the top of the triangle. It's an apex of the triangle. So some people wouldn't consider this a true T square because it involves the ascendant. And sometimes the ascendant, since it's not actually a planet or a luminary or an asteroid, it's just a point that they wouldn't consider it. But I personally, the ascendant and the MC are very important to me. I think that even just knowing those two things can tell you so much about yourself that I always include it. So in this case, your ascendant is opposing your north node. Um, so this can be a challenging placement because who you present yourself as in initially in your first encounters, the way you kind of perceive every single experience in your life, your first way of experiencing it is through the lens of the Pisces energy of someone who wants to compassionately feel and find the emotional tenderness of the situation. But your north node of where your soul really wants to achieve, where the soul wants to go, what it hasn't experienced before and it wants to experience in this life is in Virgo, and that is the opposite of Pisces. The Virgo North Node wants to be useful. It wants to provide a service. It wants to be helping get the solution in a real practical way. Where the Pisces energy is deeply feeling and spiritually concerned and almost sometimes drowning in the problem or this like karmic energy of people's sufferings. Virgo wants to find the solution. It wants to be working towards fixing this. It doesn't like to sit in feelings too long. It wants to acknowledge that there's a problem and always be working for the answer. Virgo's very, let's get working on this problem. I'm going to fix you. I'm going to fix this. I can see how I can make this better. You could be this. So I'm going to do everything I can to get you into that highest ideal. Where the Pisces energy is like, I feel you, I feel your pain, and I might just stay there and see if I can spiritually lift you up. We might not actually be able to get you an answer, but you're not alone in this pain. So it karmically carries that for you. So you're not suffering as much. So that's a pretty deep way to describe that. But when we're talking about the nodes, it does get that deep. So your south node is sitting there. So you deeply feel and connect with people. And that's a gift. That's a strength. You help other people acknowledge their feelings. And that is the south node of your gift to this life. That's a strength that you have. So your north node wants to say, okay, let's move on from that. How can we help practically fix this situation? How can we bring order to that chaos? How can we bring calmness to the suffering? How can we heal them in a way that they can actually survive in this real world? So that's where you're going. So those are two different thoughts, but they're very spiritual energies. They're both spiritual. They're both one of wanting to help. So when you have this, you need something to help get you over to the Virgo side. So we look to the apex of this T square and we see it's your Sagittarius, super Venus, Mars energy here. So that's the solution to help you get to the North Node side here. You're being asked to lean into this very active, direct, forward moving energy of your Sagittarius. Sagittarius is fire and it's mutable. It is always ready to do something. It's not sitting in their feelings and it's not planning the solution. It's actually moving and doing. It's physically active. So the answer for you is when you're physically and mentally expanding your experience and trying to reach out to people outside of your experience. When you're having those mind-blowing situations in life, whether it be through higher education, you never knew this before, higher philosophical beliefs, you never considered this before, or if it's traveling somewhere else, no, I've never seen this before. All of those things are going to help you move towards this cooperation between this opposing energy here and ultimately towards the North Node. It's pushing you out of your go-to Pisces energy. It's forcing you out of your comfort zone into new experiences where you have a chance to pick up a skill, a new way of doing something, a new way of bringing order and your analytical side into being someone who actually is part of the solution in life. And that's what you really wanted to explore. Your soul really wanted to grow into someone who is really actively and in reality helping solving problems. And when you can explore new ways that pulls you out of your Pisces go-to, I feel you energy, and it turns into, hey, let's go there, let's do this, let's try this, and moves you into the, hey, we're actually we're actually like taking steps to make this better. And I feel really good about that. And that's what my soul wanted to do this time. And I feel so useful, and look at the progress that we've made now. I can see it, I can feel it, it's here, it's growing. That's where you feel really fulfilled. So I think I'll stop there. I think that was a lot of information. So let me know if you have any questions or if you want some more clarification on anything. And happy birthday. I hope you enjoyed this reading.